You're more American than I am. And it's a left-hand drive.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you.
I know, I thought now that you've just left America for a few days, I thought I'd bring a bit of America back to chase you.
I know, rain and left-hand drive trucks. Come on, Anna, are we taking this?
No, they're a bit wet, obviously.
Where do you want it?
Just here, and then might have to sanitize the cushions. These are quite comfortable.
I'll be the judge.
Yeah, they're all right.
Oh, these do look comfy.
Oh man, hang on, don't sit in it without these.
Oh shit.
Because I've made that mistake. There we go, look.
There's more miles on these chairs than my first car.
It's like an X-Taxi, a really, really baggy X-Taxi. Welcome to Untitled Chat on the Late Break Show, where I bring the horrific brown chairs to a location and speak to an important person in this automotive world that we live in. This one, I'm very proud to announce, it's been in the making for a long time, but the man doesn't live anywhere near us. It's Ant Anstead, the TV mechanic.
Yay. Is that the point where you edit in?
Yeah.
The rapturous applause.
The applause.
Which is basically my mum going.
Someone waving a Union Jack in the background.
Yeah, remember you're British.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Let's start there, because you're not here very often, which is why I haven't been able to interview you for ages. You've brought the rain with you because it's been flipping boiling for months.
Now, obviously, I stay in contact with everyone I know in England, and they've all been celebrating this monumental Californian summer that you guys have been having.
Yeah.
And the day I land...
Oh, it pisses down.
It rains, yeah. Which I guess is fine, whatever.
It's okay.
It's England saying, stay away.
Do you think that's what it is?
No, I just think England rains. I don't know.
Do you miss it though?
That's a big question. It's really strange. Throughout my whole life, I've always felt a little bit displaced.
Have you?
I've never felt truly settled, and I don't know why that is.
That's interesting, because you're a Devonian.
I am Plymouth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's this weird thing of like, you're West Country, we're almost the same age. I obviously don't have any hair, or some, and we're both really into cars, but do you feel anchored to Devon at all? Or did you leave there when
100%.
you were like 3 years old or something?
No, 100%.
Okay.
It's really strange. So luckily, a lot of my family are West Country. My grandparents lived in Cornwall. I've got uncle in Devon. And we used to always do our family holidays, road trip down to Cornwall. So
you said when we were off camera, actually, you were saying that you're just about to borrow a car because you don't have a car in the UK. Because you don't live in the UK.
No, I know. Yeah, weirdly, I don't. And
so you had a panic of like, what? I need to get a car quick.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. Being in the car world, I can call a lot of manufacturers and say, "Hey, have you got a press car free?" And I did that. Like last minute, I quickly phoned up JLR and said, shit, I forgot.
Can I have a car?
And to be fair, they always step up, and yeah, they've just dropped a car off, so I can get about because I'm off to Silverstone this evening.
Yeah. So you've got a. What outside?
It is it's a Defender 90,
okay.
But I've not been outside to look at it yet.
No, because you're in here and it's wazzing with rain.
So yeah, and I have a Defender in the US.
Okay, so that's your everyday car?
Yes, my daily driver is, in fact, I really like it. When Defender, and by the way, I think they did a fantastic job. I love that car, by the way. When Defender became available in the US, it was still quite scarce. Mm-hmm. Only a few people had them. And I was very lucky to be one of those early custodians. And I got this heritage version. So I got steel wheels, the heritage green, white roof, the white wheels, white roof. I went for cloth seats, super standard.
That's the best spec.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
The third seat.
They work better when they're played down.
Yeah.
And utilitarian.
Oh, I love it. And I often drive with my foot on the dash.
What?
Yeah, so I drive like that.
Do you?
Yeah, I love driving like that. So that part of the dash is already worn.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. I just feel like I like the kind of. It's California. I'm just
sort of like mansplaying whilst driving.
It is that exactly.
Californian mansplay drive.
I know, but remembering with a left-hand drive, it's all right foot.
Of course, it's all right foot. Anyway, it's auto.
So you couldn't do it in England.
Yeah, it would be an odd
Otherwise,
one.
you'd have to accelerate with your left foot.
Of course, that's right, because you've got a foot rest, but can't lift your leg out the footwell, really.
So I've got the kind of the standard kind of cloth dash in the corner on this side is completely worn through now. I know. And I don't clean it.
That's just so odd.
I know, but isn't that what Defender stands for?
Yeah.
It's utilitarian, it's usable. In fact, really weird story is I'm desperately trying to get hold of a really early Series 1.
Are you?
Yeah. But I don't want the whole car, I just want the body.
Okay.
Because in the US, they're rare, right? Really, really rare.
Yeah.
And I went to a bar last night and there's a dude with a Series 1 tattoo on his forearm. And I'm like, oh, and then he watches Wheeler Dealers. And I'm like, oh man, and he's got one.
Really?
And he lives like half a mile from here.
So you're going to...
I'm seeing him this afternoon.
Are you really?
And he's got, I've got the tarp and doors and bulkhead and wings. I was like, what?
What? Are you going to build something over there?
I'm going to build a little beach kind of chug around. Oh. And not paint it, leave it all ratty.
Yeah, they look great like that.
Yeah.
So your skills and things that you accrued on wheelie dees, we'll talk about wheelie dees in a sec, but where did you get your hands-on skills from? Because you're not from, your career was police and not engineering in the police. Where did the engineering come along?
So I was a car builder before I was a police officer.
Oh, okay.
So when I say car builder, I built cars at home.
Oh, okay.
So I did the kind of classic kid move, Lego and go-karts and soapboxes and cardboard boxes and Meccano and all that kind of stuff. And then at 16, I built my first car, which was a kit car.
Yeah.
From Cambridgeshire, from a company called Tiger.
I've heard of Tiger.
So it's like a sort of a Lotus 7 style car. So I built that with a Sierra Donor, which I bought for £50. I went with my dad to pick it up and the exhaust fell off.
I'm not surprised.
It was like, really late at night and it was unbearably loud and we pushed it like the last mile back to our house.
Because it was too...
Oh, it was unbearable. And so I paid £50 for this red Ford Sierra. And in my dad's, and at that school, which was here in Hertfordshire, my dad had a semi-detached house with a garage at the back.
Yeah.
And I built the car in the garage on my own.
Really?
Like every rivet, drill, and I loved it. And I didn't even have a license.
No, of course not.
And
so was that your first car then?
Well, no, technically my first car was an MG Midget. So the first car I owned, that was the first car I built. But the first car I owned was an MG Midget called Bridget the Midget.
Oh, right. So you had a Midget, then you built a kit car.
Yeah. And then I sold the kit car.
Okay.
Within 20 miles. Because at that point, I was like, oh my God, I love building. And I made a bit of profit and then I went and got a project and did it again.
Okay.
So by the time I was kind of 17, 18, I joined the police at 18 and a half. But by then I'd probably had a couple of restorations under my belt.
Yeah.
And then police work is perfect if you're a car builder because it's shift work.
Of course.
So
it's regimented.
Yeah, I was doing shift work and then buying parts, and I was also playing football. I was really lucky. I managed to earn quite a bit of money playing football.
Did you?
Yeah, I played football for 17 seasons, over 700 paid games.
Okay.
Of football. So I was earning, pocket money playing football, whilst being a police officer restoring cars. I had this kind of really cool.
That's a busy life already, though.
Yeah, it was. And I was a young dad. I was a dad super young, and I was married super young. And
do you almost prefer the building and the tinkering to the driving?
100%, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I can.
That's my brother.
I can take or leave the driving.
Can you?
Yeah, even now. Like, don't get me wrong. I like to get in a car and drive it, but then I'm kind of over it.
Do you like diagnosing problems with cars?
On some cars, yeah. Like, give me early cars, yeah. I love it.
I don't mean like, a 3-year-old Defender.
No one likes that.
No, but like old analog stuff.
Oh yeah. No, I love. That's my. And in fact, my favourite part of car building is metalwork. If you ask the Wheeler dealer crew, whenever there was a welding job or a panel repair, that's when I disappeared, because that's my kind of
happy place.
Yeah, it's my happy place.
Is it?
Yeah, I love metalwork.
The first TV gig that you got, that I remember anyway, was For the Love of Cars with Phil Glenister.
That's right, yeah.
And that's when I met you, I think. Yeah, it was. And how did that actually happen?
God, it's so weird, because everybody
probably seems like 30 years ago now to you.
It was 10 years ago.
Right. Wow.
Every person I speak to in TV, and I mean this, literally every single person I speak to in TV, and you'll probably clarify this, didn't ever want to be in TV. They kind of fall into TV.
I certainly never did.
No, and
Well,
I
it
never
was
did.
never on my radar, actually.
No, it was never something I considered.
No.
And it was really interesting. I'd actually been asked to do a TV show the year before by accident. And what had happened is I'd had a workshop at that point in Hartford and rented this building in Hartford. And then I got a letter through the post office basically saying the place had been compulsory purchased and the government are turning it into a car park.
What?
And I'm like, what? And I'd not been in there long, maybe 18 months. And I'm like, oh, you've got like 6 months to get out. And I'm saying to the landlord, like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's a compulsory purchase. And I think it was like a Sainsbury's car park.
So you just set your business up?
Yeah. So anyway,
I got turned into a car park?
Yeah. So I got this kind of notice to move.
Yeah.
So I started to ask some friends, I need a workshop, I need somewhere to go. And then a friend of mine called Howard. Howard's like, oh, well, actually, I own a bit of greenbelt land, which funnily enough, he bought from the proceeds of crime because it was a cannabis farm. It got seized by the police. I know, right? And he's like, look, I can't do anything with it. It's greenbelt, but there's barns on there.
Yeah.
You can go there. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't operate my business there.
Yeah.
So I took a risk. So I bought this piece of land.
Yeah.
And then I went through very quickly the planning permission to turn it into commercial use and got it.
Wow.
So while I'm moving out of the compulsory purchase building and moving into the new farm, I had an electrician at the time who didn't work for me. He was a freelancer called PJ, who, bless him, he's passed now. And PJ was the electrician on a car show. Oh. And I can't remember the name of the car show, but you'll probably be able to work it out from this.
Okay.
So the car show was filmed at an MOT station, I think in St Albans. And every year they lock it down for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And they were just gearing up to go for their whatever season.
Yeah.
And the premises where they were had a problem. It felt like they were maybe holding them to ransom. They wanted more money, or something was happened about the premises. And my PJ electrician just happened to be there and said, oh, you do know that Ant's got this premises. He's just moving into his farm.
Yeah.
Why don't you go in there? The ramps are there, the electrics are there, plus you can rack the place because it's going to get tore down. So he then tells this producer and says, well, look, why don't you, instead of being held to ransom here, it's only around the corner in Hartford. So the next day, so PJ phones me up and says, oh, would you, could he take your place for 12 weeks? And I'm like, yeah, that would work. What does he need? Like I could leave, and I had 3 ramps. I said I could leave the ramps up, and he says, well, he's going to come and see you tomorrow. And this dude turned up and he was really kind of rude on the phone. He was like, yeah, how much power have you got? Like how many, we've got a lot of equipment and you have to be out the way and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, fine. And this is never dealt with anyone in TV before.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, gosh, he's pretty short. Maybe he's in a rush. So I said, yeah, just come up and see me. And if you like the place, we can talk about it. If you don't, no hard feelings. I'm moving anyway. So this dude's like, yeah, okay, well, I'm coming from London and I'll pop in for 30 minutes. And he was obsessed about the amount of power, like how much, I think, for lighting.
The draw, yeah.
So this dude turns up and the 30 minutes was literally, he stayed for 8 hours.
What?
He stayed the whole day. And he's just like, oh my God, I was building some really cool Zagatos and DBR1s and doing these, restorations. And I had quite a big team and it was, there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And I was explaining, yeah, look, this is and it was a really nice heritage building. It's where we filmed the first season of Full of Cars, funnily enough, because they never knocked it down.
Right.
This guy's staying and he's like assessing. And then the next day I get an email going, premises is great, but you'd be really great on TV. Would you consider it? I didn't. And I'm like, no, not really. And I was, busy with stuff and I wanted to move and I eventually did move. And then it was a little bit later, maybe even a year later, I'd managed to straddle between both premises, but the same production person got pulled into the Full of Cars on Channel 4. Says, hey, do you remember me?
You're like, yeah, you're the rude guy from London.
Basically, yeah, you're the rude guy from London. Well, look, we're doing a different show now and it's a different format and we'd love to come and see you. And then they came up and did a kind of not a screen test because they didn't tell me they were necessarily filming.
Yeah.
They kind of did the ninja filming.
Oh, naughty.
And he'd be like, oh, explain what you're doing. And I remember I was doing some Webers. I can't remember what car it was on. And he was like, oh, so what are you doing? I was talking through doing these Webers while fitting them and tuning them and stuff. And then I got
So
called.
it's a secret screen test.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, they're actually the better ones, probably.
Yeah, because I'd have been like...
You got no nerves. Yeah, you're just being you. Yeah.
Then I got called down to London and into this production room, and there was like 5 or 6 people at the table, and they were like, watch this. On the TV, there's me talking about weather.
Oh, and they just cut some bits.
They just put together like a little 3-minute thing, and they literally said, we think you'd be really good on TV. There's a contract for the love of cars. Can you let us know by the end of the week? Go and get an agent.
Interesting, really.
And yeah, I decided that day.
Wow. Football.
Yes.
Now, I've had a theory in the past, and maybe I'm going to eat my words now, Ant. I've got a theory in the past that if you're really into football, you can't be a really like fanatical car person.
What?
Yeah. Because,
oh my God.
Because men's brains just don't have the space to be able to do those two things.
Who told you that nonsense?
I've developed this theory since I've become a motoring journalist.
Well, you need to rewrite that today.
well, in this moment. This is why I brought it up, because when I found out that you were like mad into football, playing football, I was like, how does that work?
Well, actually, I'm mad into sports. So I was always I really love sports. In fact, as a young kid, I played rugby.
Yeah.
When I got to the kind of late teens, I was, typical young lad. I would play rugby in the morning on a Saturday and a football game in the afternoon. And then I had a few kind of niggling rugby injuries, particularly my shoulders. And then I worked out I was a reasonable enough football player to be paid to play football. So you can imagine being a 17, 18-year-old kid going, wait a minute, you're going to pay me to come and play. Do the thing that I'm already doing. At that point, I stopped playing rugby. Yeah. And I just started playing football. And then I've had this really I look back now and it was a really phenomenal football career. And I played over 700 games. And it's a good level, conference, Ryman. I started off as a goalkeeper. Did you? Yeah, so I was a goalkeeper for many years. In fact, I won the Ryman League as a goalkeeper, and I've also promoted from the Ryman League as a striker. So I think I'm the only player, both striker and
goalkeeper to striker.
Yeah, but later, because normally you get old and go in goal.
I was going to say, you got this relationship with Jenson with the Radford thing, which is sort of sprung out of nowhere, it seems. A, how did that start? And B, are you close friends with him or business partners?
Well, I would say Jenson's one of my best friends. Like you, Somerset, same age. He is Somerset. He's slightly younger, he's Frome. Yeah. It's interesting because, of course, as a British car kid, we all grew up knowing who Jenson Button is. Yeah. So when you know who Jenson is and you admire, and I could safely say you admire him. Yeah. Because we all should. Yeah. He's had a phenomenal career, but he's also an excellent human being. Our paths started to cross 7, 8 years ago because of this crazy car world we're in. You know people in common and you meet at events and stuff like that. And then I was walking, it was first year I went to LA. I went to a car show in LA. And I'm just walking through the crowd and I just hear, Ant. And I'm like, oh, Jenson. And, we followed each other on social and, there's a bit of banter. Oh, and he'd just moved to LA. I just moved to south of LA. Yeah. And we kind of swapped numbers. And then a few months later, I was like, oh, there's an event. Oh, I'm going. Oh, we'll meet up and had a beer. And then it was kind of a bit more. And then we became sort of sociable friends. And then, Radford as an idea has actually been an idea my whole life. And Jenson's as well. Resurrecting a coach building. Yeah, building low volume bespoke cars has been it's been a life's dream. Yeah. We're sat in a workshop now where I sort of scratch the surface of it. Yeah. And, I'm really proud of this place. This place has done phenomenally. If I search your name
on Google.
Yeah.
Obviously, 5 years ago, it would have just been wheeler dealer related stuff and car stuff. It's actually not so much car stuff right now. It's more.
It's my ridiculous private life. Yeah.
It's your private life with Christina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was awful. We all have setbacks in our life, and you know, I feel incredibly privileged and very lucky. I've had a really, you know, my setbacks on the grand scheme of things aren't that bad.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a shock. It kind of came out of nowhere. COVID had hit as well. So I couldn't leave because there was this kind of weird visa anomaly in my passport. So I was trapped. I couldn't go to the UK, and my older kids couldn't come to the US. They were trapped here. I was trapped there. It was brutal. And I'm like, and it's, you know, it was this overnight. I, you know, lost my friends, my wife, my home, and I'm all of a sudden in this kind of
bedsit.
Yeah, it was a bedsit in with a baby. And I can vividly remember it was such an icon, you know, such an important moment for me. I love whiteboards, and I believe in vision boards. I believe in having strategy and going, right, like I do it with builds, like I did it with this.
Did you?
I was like, that's the thing. I printed some pictures up and said, I'm going to make that car, and then a year later I'd start to make it.
Yeah.
So I had a whiteboard, and I was going through the concept of doing a coach building company, and it was this whole kind of mind map of this brain dump of what it was.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting looking back 2 years later going, blimey, it's that.
It is done.
It's exactly that. Even to some sort of intricate nuance, it's that in that moment. So when I was in this really dark place and I shut everything out because I was getting pelted in the press.
How do you tackle that? How do you overcome the upset, the stress?
I guess it takes a certain type of personality to be willing to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's a weird job. It's not a job. Like what we do is not work.
It's a sort of life choice, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. And as the culture changes and the environment that we live in has massively changed, in the 10 years I've been on TV, social media has changed.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So much so. And then I think when you throw COVID in, it really, in my experience, is, you know, as COVID started to thicken, particularly in America, because, you know, LA was locked down and New York was terrible. I was subjected to so much hatred because I think other people, and, you know, without getting too, you know, therapist on it, it's a projection, isn't it? So you've got all these people like, I can shout at that guy, and, you know, you're a failure and your marriage has failed and you're useless, and all these kind of fake stories and this awful trolling. And, you know, it was so I did what I think most people would naturally do. I closed the doors, turned it off. And actually what that ended up invariably doing was it kind of reset me and gave me focus. And I think particularly as men, we have to find purpose. And I've got lots of friends that when they lose their purpose, they change, their character changes.
Yeah.
Whereas I've got friends that are purpose driven, and they're like, you can just tell they love what they do. They're going after it. It gets them up before the alarm clock. And all of a sudden I found myself with this kind of bit between my teeth. I'm like, right, I've got some purpose. I'm going to freaking do this. And I started to pull team in, and, you know, Roger, if you look at the original founders of Radford, Roger, Jenson and me are the kind of the trio. And then we had a guy, Mark, who was a designer who stepped away now. And then Izzy, who's now our marketing lead, we just got together in a group and we were like, right, this is the vision, let's do it. And we did. And it's interesting because I look back at that period, because if you think about, like, what are the chances that Jenson and myself are in the same country at the same time when he's retired? What are the chances that Lotus are willing to, you know, last time they gave a collaboration, I was 9 years old. Like, what are the chances that they're going to electric? What are the chances that Radford was available?
Yeah.
Like, all these kind of this perfect alignment at a time when I needed to reset and have something new.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, remember, Wheeler Dealers went back to the US. So I'd moved my life to America on a 5-year contract, a 5-year deal. Yeah. And then 3 years in, Wheeler Dealers has gone back to the UK.
Of course, it didn't last for 5 years.
So I've like,
because that's why you left here.
Yeah. Everything in that 12-week window, everything left.
You got a kid that's not even 1 year old.
But that's the best thing. That's the funny thing is, kind of, you look at the silver lining in every setback. Hudson, like, I would go through it again 1,000,000 times for Hudson. He's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah. He and I have a great relationship, and it's really lovely. He was worth it.
How did you do the whole, because obviously, like you say, you relocated to America because of the wheeler dealer job. How did you get the wheeler dealer job? And how did you convince your family that it was a good idea to go out to the States?
I'd been having conversations with Discovery. So at the time, before Wheeler Dealers, I was doing stuff on BBC and Channel 4 at the same time, which was kind of cool. Because sometimes I think it's sometimes hard to straddle different networks.
It is.
And I did a show called The World's Most Expensive Cars, where I followed Sotheby's around the world.
I remember that.
But that was the first time BBC and Channel 4 did a co-pro. So, and I remember going to the production meetings, and on one side of the table was the Beeb, and the other side was Channel 4. It was weird.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And I think now way more people are willing to collaborate and share platforms and ultimately audiences. And I'd had like a few tentative kind of Discovery reach outs. Oh, you know, because I'd done a few engineering shows and some craft shows, and oh, you know, we'd love to have a conversation. And I'm great friends with Mike, and I'm, you know, great friends with Ed. And you know, just one day I got a call from Discovery. Hey, you know, would you consider coming to Discovery? And you know, what would that look like, and what would the show be? And we'd love you to do something car related. And then it was about, I don't know, 18 months later, you know, Discovery obviously had known that Ed was going, and they said, hey, look, we'd really like to replace Ed. Would you consider it? But you got to move to America.
Wow.
And we did a chemistry test in this workshop right here, where we wheeled in a Series 2 Land Rover, and Mike and I just shot, pretending that he'd bought this car. And we just did a kind of like walk around the car.
Right, okay.
And it was like 2 hours. And the only experience I'd had with Mike was at the NEC. So I was always booked to do stage stuff, and it was always the wheeler dealer stage. So I would work with Mike and Ed for probably 3 or 4 years at that point, on the stage at car shows. And Mike was like, well, look, let's see how it, it's either going to work on screen or it's not. And we did. We had loads of fun, shot around this Series 2 Land Rover, literally here. And a couple of weeks later, they sent it.
A couple of weeks later?
They'd edited it.
Yeah.
And they said, watch that. And the commissioner, or the boss of then Velocity Network, Bob Scanlon, which then turned to Motor Trend, but back then it was Velocity, who were in control of the Wheeler Dealer franchise now, one of the subsidiaries of Discovery, just phoned me up and was like, have you watched the chem test? And I'm like, no, I've got the link, but I haven't watched it yet. Oh, no, will you watch it and call me back? Okay. And I watched it and I laughed my way through it. And it was like, actually, that's really good. Like, you can tell that Mike and I had a great relationship.
Yeah.
He's like, so do you want to do it? And I went home and, and I said, look, this is the opportunity. We vote as a family, because of course I have 2 kids, Archie, Emily and Louise. But my vote, I abstain, so what do you want to do? And we were on the bed, and my daughter then said, you only regret the chances you don't take. We have to go. And then she burst into tears. And then my son, Archie, burst into tears and was like, I trust Emily, whatever Emily says. And then Lou was like, I'm outvoted. And we went.
Wow. Thanks for watching part 1 of Idle Chat with Ant Anstead. If you haven't become a Patreon of the channel yet, maybe consider becoming one. I will put a link in the description. Subscribe, of course, and also if you want to watch part 2, click away on the screen now. I'll put part 2 up there for you.